Let's explore the most powerful spiritual sadhana transformation techniques. We got to sidestep the landmine of magical thinking. If our sadhanas are full of non-human entities and call us to worship and supplicate, that is a high probability we're going to find ourselves in magical thinking. Which is going to excite our petulant tendencies. The Christian New Testament, specifically the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians, does an excellent job of inferring that there is a vertical devotion and a horizontal love. And that vertical devotion is pretty much messy kid stuff. It might keep a calf close to her mom, that the udders might feed the calf and the horns might protect the calf. But that calf is going to remain a child until it hits adolescence. At that point, the vertical devotion will be replaced with horizontal love for their peer group. That is a necessary part of growing up. Similarly, if you and I remain in spiritual or quasi-spiritual childhood, forever reaching for a real or imagined entity for protection or nourishment, we will be forever indulging our dualistic tendencies to shove at some things and reach for other things. The tyranny of which the Buddha described as the second noble truth, the origin of our sufferings. Number two, well, I just hit that, so let's hit here. Rather than play with this messy kid stuff before you meditate, some of the more pragmatic teachers of yore have simply recited an excerpt from an ancient meditation manual prior to meditating themselves. When it comes time to actually meditate, use techniques that work. Steer shy of cryptic techniques or the folly of keeping secrets. Keeping secrets is about elitism and patriarchy and is actually the opposite of what the Buddha taught. When we read the Nirvana Sutta, we learn that the Buddha said as he lay dying, I have taught with an outstretched arm and an open hand, keeping no secrets. If our teacher keeps secrets, find a better teacher. Find a teacher who is egalitarian instead of elitist, who is loving instead of fearful, who is laid back instead of controlling. And of course, after your meditation, rather than reciting prayers, once again, that reinforce that indulge our dualistic tendencies, simply conclude by revisiting the opening excerpt. In the long term, that'll do much more good than not. This is instructions from the life story of one of the most influential teachers of Soto Zen. He was not formally recognized as a teacher. All he taught was Zazen. All he chanted was Heart Sutra. And yet his legacy is his presentation of the teachings the impact of that presentation has been felt worldwide. And in time, the stodgy people who did not recognize him as a teacher eventually did. I hope you find this useful. Now, I got to tell you, I look forward to chanting and meditating with you together after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I think what I'd like to do is begin with chanting a passage, the very first passage of, well, let me go back over here real quick. There we go. So what I'd like to do is chant the first excerpt from the Total Space of Vajrasattva, the primary text of Dzogchen, composed by Prahe Vajra, known as Gaurab Dorje in Tibet, translated into Italian by Chokyal Namkai Norbu, translated into English by Adriano Clemente, adapted and amplified by yours truly. Please chant with me. I pay homage to the Bhagavan glorious Vajrasattva. The total space of Vajrasattva is the ever good and immense ultimate dimension of phenomena. Being the pure total path that liberates all, it does not arise or cease, it does not think of anything. What is meant by the divine nature of the archetype of indestructible mind? The circumstantial is seen, yet not graspable. The physical is sensual, yet not graspable. The interdependent is resounding. The interpersonal is resounding, yet not graspable. And the mental is lucid, yet not graspable. The wisdom of letting go is the one path that liberates all, and yet it is neither graspable itself, nor is it a sentient entity requiring either faith nor worship. If you've just joined me, welcome aboard. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Whether we call it Satipasati, Proto-Zen, Chan, Dhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasanti, Anti-Yoga, Dzogchen, or Trekcho, it's still just mindfulness and meditation. When I was a little boy, my grandmother had a step stool in her kitchen that had 3 steps and a seat. That's what we're going to do this morning. And within the next 4 exercises, it's my intention to bring you up to contemplative cruising altitude. Let's start with the most basic thing, mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access the sympathetic nervous system. Ensconced not within the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears, it is found in the thoracic region of our spinal cord. It evolved not to support either extreme of mind blanking or active concentration. Instead, it evolved to merely notice, to merely perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. It would seem that vulnerability is the price of mindfulness, and the reason why this meditational archetype, known in Sanskrit as Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri, Karma Mudra, is depicted as naked. Now, if we're not supposed to actively concentrate upon our breath, what then describes our relationship to our breath? Our relationship to our breath is the same as that of a piano student to their metronome. When we notice our body breathing in, we can silently and mentally recite the 12 syllables, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. Notice this is not an affirmation. There is no faith here. This simply, succinctly, and poignantly observing that which is blatantly obvious. During each exhalation, every time we notice our body spontaneously exhaling, we could silently and mentally recite an additional 12 syllables, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Let's play with this together right now for 12 to 16 breaths. In the previous explanation, we explored how inhalation was the domain of mindfulness. Every time we inhale, we're wired to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We are also wired to notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Now, what are we to do with all that which we notice? Well, we meditate. But how does that work? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we spontaneously and inadvertently access the parasympathetic nervous system, also ensconced within the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord, as well as the tippy top of the cervical region. It has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Now, when we do that, every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. It could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. Now, any English teacher will tell you that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. So, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? About the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be compelling to the eye, is most certainly intangible to the hand. Perhaps that is why this archetype of meditation, known in Tibet as Kuntu Zangpo, Kuntu Zangmo, Yabyum, is painted in a manner that depicts it as being comprised of light, translucent, and also non-graspable. During the next 12 to 16 inhalations, please silently and mentally recite, sitting tall. thus reminding our body to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our head. During each exhalation, please silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. Some people close their eyes when meditating. Some people open their eyes. Some gaze at the earth, some gaze at the sky, some gaze at the horizon. Do what works best for you. Due to my excessive amount of brain damage, I have to close my eyes lest I overtax my visual cortex and my visual field becomes patchy, which makes it very difficult to go about my duties. Let's discuss a delightful fringe benefit of mindfulness and meditation. When we use concentration or contemplation, our blood collects at our amygdala, which functions as the seat of anxiety and aggression. However, when concentration is replaced with mindfulness, when contemplation is replaced with meditation, the blood shifts to our anterior cingulate gyrus, the hunk of meat just behind our forehead, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. Perhaps this is why the Dzogchen Lamas teach that the highest love is the effortless and uncontrived byproduct of mindfulness and meditation. Further, that's probably why this archetype, which can be translated into English as all good, one mother and father, are depicted as beautiful. During our inhalation, let us silently and mentally recite, notice this. And during our exhalation, let's silently and mentally continue reciting the verb relaxing. Consider the manner in which this gal, the color of a cumulus cloud, seems to be actively sporting in tantric union, thus reminding us that contrivance is always trumped by spontaneity. Consider now the passive manner in which her partner seems to be enjoying the same tantric union. This reminds us that not all spontaneity is created equal, and that scattered spontaneity is always trumped by the centered spontaneity that is the byproduct of a healthy and regular practice of mindfulness and meditation. Let's take this a step further. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, our lives could be as blissful as a real or imagined paradise of a Buddha of lore. During each inhalation, please silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. During each exhalation, please silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. Now that we've reached contemplative cruising altitude, or perhaps I should say, now that we've climbed to contemplative cruising altitude, because as a word nerd, I cannot resist an alliteration. Together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as Yoda on Dagobah under the guidance of the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn. As I mentioned previously, the English translation of this meditational archetype is all good one. How are we all good one? We already possess the neurological equipment required for mindfulness, for awareness, for letting go, and for love. We are already wired to quickly and easily master the Buddha's Eightfold Path. The first fold of the Eightfold Path is right view. According to the Buddha's most popular meditation manual, the Anapanasati Sutta, we master this right view of reality simply by recognizing change when we see it, not chasing it, not fleeing from it, simply recognizing it. As we sit in meditation, one posture ceases to be comfortable, and so we switch to another. Sights change, sounds change, sensations change, flavors change, our experience of flavors change, scents change. We go from one scent to another scent to another scent. Emotions shift, intention shift, thoughts shift, memory shift, fantasies shift. Simply recognizing change makes of grasping an act of futility. Let's continue. By the way, when you have a question, please type it in the chat window. I check for questions approximately once every 8 minutes or so. The second fold, so 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness. Don't let anybody tell you, or don't believe anybody who tells you that the Buddhist philosophical system makes of us cold androids, unthinking and uncaring. The second fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path is wishing love, which is the essence of mental morality. The third fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path is kind communication the essence of interpersonal morality. The fourth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path is kind conduct. The essence of physical morality. How do we know what's kind? Well, we flow from the effortless effort generated by love's centered spontaneity, and it just flows through us. And if we don't know what to do, then that's a learning opportunity. Flow from the effortless effort of love-centered spontaneity, and everything will take care of itself. Remember, the effortless spontaneity is the love-centered spontaneity is generated from a regular practice of mindfulness and meditation, which are, of course, the seventh and eighth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. And of course, the effortless effort is the sixth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. So I got ahead of myself. The fifth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path is kind commerce, which is the essence of circumstantial morality. Simply put, we choose not to be a Karen who stomps about the countryside trying to get people fired, and we choose not to be a Chad who delights in driving other businesses out of business. Instead, we choose kindness and cooperation. What if enlightenment was neither mystical nor magical, but simply the mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? As a very little boy, I found tying my own shoes to be an insurmountable task. However, with time and effort, I was able to learn to tie my shoes, and I so mastered it to the point of tying it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Mastery can be accomplished with any skill set, given quality instruction and then time and effort. Assuming there's not some sort of a physical challenge. If someone loses their eyeballs, they're probably not going to be able to read a chart. What if enlightenment was nothing more than mastering the Buddha's Eightfold Path, getting so good at it that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively? According to the second to the final passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, this can be accomplished in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. To me, the real decisive factor is how quickly we master sitting. In a nutshell, the essence of morality is when our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity that is generated by the regular practice of meditation and mindfulness upon our ever changing experiences. Many Mahayana teachers insist that wisdom is twofold, pertaining to impermanence and interdependence. I've already explained impermanence this morning, so let's explore interdependence. 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness. Loving kindness flows from the effortless effort generated by love, by love's centered spontaneity, in turn generated by mindfulness and meditation. We can observe that our choices and utterances and deeds can affect others, sometimes beneficially, sometimes harmfully. That can guide us to doing the least amount of harm and the most amount of good. That is the overlapping Venn diagram between interdependence and loving kindness. Let us seal our practice by returning to our opening excerpt. Oops. And to do that, I'm going to tap button 14.